Alice in Chains and Klone. These are two bands that do about 20% light rock songs, 40% hard rock songs, and 40% metal songs. Well, Alice in Chains has a bit more light stuff on the second halves of a lot of their albums, so maybe they're more like 30, 35, 35. Okay, I can already hear some of you screaming at me in the comments section that Alice in Chains is grunge, and if it's grunge, it can't be metal. Well, if a band like Pearl Jam is grunge rock, then what happens if you make that grunge rock heavier? Well, you get grunge hard rock, maybe something like Soundgarden. And then, what happens if you take grunge hard rock and make it even heavier? Then, yeah, you have grunge metal. And that's assuming the musical genre of grunge even exists at all, because I kind of feel like in the early 90s the term grunge could have been applied to anything and everything that you could play on a bass, drums, and a guitar that didn't sound like glam, thrash metal, extreme metal, or typical 80s music. That's why Pearl Jam and Alice in Chains are both called grunge and they sound nothing alike. Candlebox and Silverchair, both called grunge, sound nothing alike. Stone Temple Pilots and the Melvins, they were both called grunge, and they sound nothing alike. And if a musical genre has no identifiable sound characteristics, then it's not really a music genre, in my opinion. So if you're the kind of heavy music fan that I am, you love the sound of hard power chords and low-end palm muting. A real metal riff is made up of about 90% or more power chords and low-end palm muting. Hard rock riffs have those things, but they include more single notes and other chords that aren't power chords and mix them into the riff. A light rock riff has no power chords or low-end palm muting. So a metal song is about 50% or more metal riffs, and a hard rock song is about 50% or more hard riffs, including both hard rock riffs and metal riffs together. So you could have symphonic rock, symphonic hard rock, and symphonic metal. You can have punk rock, punk hard rock, and punk metal. You can have progressive rock, progressive hard rock, and progressive metal. And even grunge rock, grunge hard rock, and grunge metal, if the musical genre exists at all. It all depends on how much heavy stuff is in the riffs. The thing about Alice in Chains and Klone is that they have two of the best vocalists to ever sing metal songs in Lane Staley and Jan Linger. There are way too many modern metal bands that do death metal screamo vocals and can't hit different notes. That vocal style has intensity but no melody, as different notes are what creates melody, and also little to no emotional impact. Or for metal singers that do hit notes, they either go the power metal route with intensely annoying attempts to shatter windows with the highest and most cringe-worthy notes that can possibly make it past their lips, and they go showing off with too much vibrato, which tends to lend itself to lack of emotional intensity, just as monotone death metal vocals do, while sounding even more ridiculous. Or they go totally clean, dropping all the intensity and all the grit out of it, like a band like Ghost. And then there are bands like In Flames, Bullet for My Valentine, and Killswitch Engage that go back and forth between Cookie Monster screamo and thin punk rock vocals that hit different notes but are totally scant and weak. Klone is a modern metal band with a singer in Jan Linger that can hit different notes and maintain intensity and grit at the same time, like Lane Staley of Alice in Chains did in the 90s. Both these bands went through stylistic transitions early in their careers. In the late 80s, an unsigned Alice in Chains had an upbeat, bouncy, goofy glam rock sound. Then they changed their name from Alice N Chains to Alice in Chains, and they started to do some heavier, slower-paced songs. You can hear both these styles clashing on the demo Sweet Alice. Half of those songs ended up being re-recorded with stronger, more deliberate vocals for Facelift. The new songs added to Facelift were darker and carried more emotional intensity. Ultimately, there were 6.5 good songs on Facelift. The second half of Sunshine is pretty good, but while the second half of Sunshine was strong, the second half of Facelift was weak, something that would happen on many Alice in Chains albums to come after that. Klone's transition was from extreme metal to progressive metal. Their early album Duplicate is largely based around rhythmic palm muting and monotone screams, but on the chorus of some songs, Jan Linger would show that he can sing actual notes and carry a tune as well. 5 of these songs are pretty good. The ones with black lines through them are just short intros leading into the preceding song. Over the course of Klone's discography, Jan Linger would do more and more real singing while maintaining good intensity, but thankfully less and less monotone screamo nonsense. Klone's next album, High Blood Pressure, had 5 good songs, including a live version of a track from Duplicate that was very different from the original. Alice in Chains' next album, Dirt, was their best album with 9 excellent songs. Klone's third album was All Seeing Eye. It had 6 good songs. After Dirt, Alice in Chains came out with a light rock album called Jar of Flies. Klone also has a light rock album called Here Comes the Sun. I'm very finicky about light music. If it doesn't move me right away, I tend to write it off. If you like light music more than I do, then you might like more of the songs on these albums than I do. That brings me to the top light rock songs of Alice in Chains and Klone. Now there's only 8 of these, because I am very finicky about light rock, like I said. Rotten Apple is number 1. And Down in a Hole I almost put on the hard rock list because there's some distorted chords in the chorus that sound kinda sorta like they might be heavy but not really. Also the songs Got Me Wrong, I Stay Away, and Heaven Beside You I considered putting on this list, but I ended up putting them in hard rock due to distorted heavy chords in the chorus. Really, all 4 of those songs probably should be on a rock list, but I didn't have enough songs for a straight up rock list, so I ended up putting Down in a Hole on this list, and Heaven Beside You, I Stay Away, and Got Me Wrong on the hard rock list. Now the way I've been doing this is the first song on the list, number 8, I give 1 point for, and the next one I give 2 points for, and each song I add 1 point, so the number 1 song is worth 8 points. So Alice in Chains wins this one 22-14, and this shows you I'm not biased against mainstream bands. In my other Versus videos, the underground band always won. But this shows you I'm not biased because Alice in Chains songs, I got to admit, at least for the light rock songs, are better than the Klone songs. After Jar of Flies, Alice in Chains came out with a self-titled album with 7 really great songs, but much like Facelift and Jar of Flies, the second half of the album was weak. After All Seeing Eye, Klone put out Black Days, and there's no reason to cross off tracks here because the whole Black Days album is amazing. This album also pretty much completed Klone's transition from extreme metal to progressive metal. Speaking of metal, let's take this opportunity to look at the top heavy metal songs list. Number 1 is Rite of Passage, one of the most energizing, epic anthems imaginable. This is my number 7 favorite song of all time. There are many peaks and valleys in the progressive song structure, but a lot of it hangs around 8 and 9 on the heavy music meter. The top Alice in Chains song is Grind. Grind is a legendary piece of music. The ominous, booming verse battles with the uplifting, ethereal chorus like the minions of heaven and hell. So I'll apply the same scoring system here. The number 25 song on the list is worth 1 point, number 24 is worth 2, and you keep adding 1 and 1 and 1 all the way up, so the number 1 song is worth 25 points. And when you add it up, Klone wins 172-153. So Klone slightly edges out Alice in Chains in terms of metal songs. After Black Days, Klone came out with another perfect album called Dreamer's Hideaway. This one more progressive and including a bit more hard rock and a bit less metal. With Alice in Chains, after the self-titled album, they came out with Black Gives Way to Blue. This only had 3 good songs on it. They went a lot lighter with this album, but the 3 good songs are really good. Then the latest album from Alice in Chains was The Devil Put Dinosaurs Here, which was horribly boring except for the first track, Hollow. They turned the distortion all the way up as if they were gonna do a sludge metal song like Sludge Factory off their self-titled album, but they played just about all single notes instead of power chords, and that was like sludge metal if you took all the punch and roar out of it until it was as thin as water. This brings us to the top hard rock songs list. Number 1 is Love, Hate, Love. The eerie acoustic crescendos and creepy rhythmic low tones transition to ascending chords and lead progressions that build to an intriguing, powerful guitar solo and a stunning, absolutely emphatic finale. Number 2 is Walking on Clouds. Walking on Clouds is a storm of thunderous palm muting with electrifying, swirling highs and intriguing, mysterious, drifting lows that rally again to astonishing celestial summits. So when we go to the scoring system on the hard rock songs list, Klone basically just trounced Alice in Chains here. Again, it's 1 point for the number 30 song, 2 points for the number 29 song, and you keep adding 1 point for every song until you get to the number 1, which is worth 30 points. So you add it all up, and Klone got 262 to Alice in Chains 203. But Alice in Chains won the light rock list, and they were really close on the heavy metal list. In fact, if you take Love, Hate, Love, which has some intermittent metal outbursts towards the finale of it, and put it on the heavy metal list, then they would have won the heavy metal list too, because that would have been number 1. Love, Hate, Love is my 5th favorite song of all time. It beats everything. But I listened to it, and the heavy metal outbursts were really short towards the very end of the song, so I think I made the right decision putting it on the hard rock list. But if I had put it on the metal list, then Alice in Chains would have won. So Klone is just a little bit better as a band in my opinion, but Alice in Chains is still really awesome. So hope you all found something that you like, and have a nice day.